You know exactly what you need to do. The task is clear. The deadline is real. The steps are simple. And yet, you don't move. Not because you're incapable. Not because you don't care. Something deeper is stopping you. Something you've been calling laziness your entire life. But what if that word was always wrong? Let's describe what this actually feels like. You wake up with intentions, maybe even energy. Today will be different, you tell yourself. But somewhere between the thought and the action, a fog rolls in. It's not tiredness exactly. It's not boredom. It's more like a glass wall between you and the thing you want to do. You can see it. You just can't reach it. So you scroll. You clean something that doesn't need cleaning. You research productivity systems you'll never use. Hours pass. And then comes the guilt. The voice that says, why can't you just do the thing? Everyone else can do the thing. What's wrong with you? This cycle has a name in psychology. It's called behavioral avoidance, a pattern where we unconsciously withdraw from tasks that carry emotional weight. But here's the critical part most people miss. Avoidance is not about the task. It's about the feeling the task is linked to. Researchers at the University of Sheffield found that procrastination is fundamentally a problem of emotional regulation, not time management. The brain isn't avoiding work. It's avoiding discomfort. And that discomfort often has nothing to do with the task itself. It might be fear of judgment, fear of failure, a buried belief that your effort won't matter anyway. Or something even older, a feeling that was never processed, just pushed aside. When you were young, you learned to disconnect. Maybe emotions weren't safe in your household. Maybe you were told to toughen up, to stop being so sensitive. Maybe the adults around you were so overwhelmed that your feelings became inconvenient. So you did what any intelligent child would do. You learned to not feel. And that strategy worked for a while. But now, decades later, that same protective mechanism is the thing keeping you frozen. Because the brain doesn't selectively numb. When you shut down difficult emotions, you also shut down motivation, drive, desire. You become efficient at surviving, but disconnected from living. So here's what I need you to understand. You were never lazy. Laziness implies a character flaw, some internal defect that makes you unwilling to try. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is a disconnection, a severed wire between your emotional system and your action system. And that disconnection isn't weakness, it's adaptation. It's the scar tissue from an environment that required you to shut down in order to survive. Dr. Peter Levine, who spent 40 years studying trauma and the nervous system, describes this as functional freeze, a state where the body is technically capable, but the deeper self has checked out. You're not broken. You're protected. And the path forward isn't about forcing yourself to work harder. It's about rebuilding the bridge between what you feel and what you do. Let's go deeper into the architecture of this. Your brain has two systems constantly negotiating. The first is your prefrontal cortex, the planner, the rational adult who makes to-do lists and sets intentions and believes in future rewards. The second is your limbic system, the feeler, the part that processes threat, reward, memory, and emotion in real time. Now here's the problem. When you experience something emotionally overwhelming, especially early in life, the limbic system starts running the show. It learns that certain feelings are dangerous, and it builds walls. Those walls don't just block pain, they block access. Think of motivation like a signal. In a healthy system, the prefrontal cortex sends a message. This task is meaningful. Let's do it. And the limbic system responds, I feel connected to that meaning. I'll release dopamine to help. But when you're emotionally disconnected, the signal never reaches the limbic system.
The rational brain is shouting into the void, and the body, which only responds to feeling, stays still. This is why willpower alone doesn't work. You can't think your way into motivation. You have to feel your way back to it.
Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio studied patients with damage to their emotional processing centers. These patients could reason perfectly. They scored high on logic tests, but they couldn't make simple decisions. What to eat, what to wear, when to act. Without emotion, action becomes almost impossible. This is called the somatic marker hypothesis, the idea that our emotions are not obstacles to rational behavior. They are the foundation of it. When you disconnect from feeling, you disconnect from doing. Visual 5 soft glowing steps appearing one by one, like stones across water. So how do you rebuild the bridge? Not through force, not through shame, through reconnection. Here are 5 principles grounded in clinical psychology and nervous system regulation. 1. Name the feeling beneath the freeze. Visual journal pages, pen moving slowly. Before you try to do the task, pause and ask, what am I actually avoiding? Not the task itself, the feeling attached to it. Is it fear of not being good enough? Resentment that you have to do this at all?
A quiet grief that no one notices how much you carry? Psychologist Susan David calls this emotional granularity, the practice of naming emotions with specificity. Research shows that simply labeling a feeling reduces its intensity. The amygdala calms. The fog lifts slightly. You don't have to solve the feeling. You just have to see it. 2. Start with the body, not the mind. Disconnection lives in the body. So does reconnection. Before approaching a task, spend 2 minutes doing something physical. Not exercise, just sensation. Cold water on your wrists, a slow stretch. 5 deep breaths where the exhale is longer than the inhale. This activates the ventral vagal pathway, the part of your nervous system associated with safety and social connection. It tells the limbic system, you are here. You are okay. You can move. You're not tricking yourself into productivity. You're restoring access to yourself. 3. Shrink the task until it fits inside your window. Clinical psychologist Dr. Dan Siegel describes something called the window of tolerance, the zone where you can experience emotion without being overwhelmed. When a task feels too big, it pushes you outside that window. The nervous system responds by shutting down. So shrink it. Don't write the essay. Write 1 sentence. Don't finish the project. Open the document. This isn't about being easy on yourself. It's about respecting your nervous system's capacity in this moment and building from there. 4. Reconnect to meaning, not outcomes. Disconnected people often lose touch with why they're doing things. Tasks become obligations. Life becomes a checklist. To rebuild motivation, you have to reconnect with values, not goals. Ask yourself, who am I becoming through this action? What does this effort say about what I care about? Psychologist Ken Sheldon's research shows
that intrinsic motivation, doing something because it aligns with your values, produces more sustained action than external rewards. The feeling of meaning reawakens the emotional system. 5. Practice micro-completions. Every time you complete something, even something small, your brain releases dopamine. Not because the task mattered, but because completion itself is rewarding. The disconnected brain has often forgotten this loop, so remind it. Finish one tiny task. Notice it. Let yourself feel the faint hum of satisfaction before moving to the next. You are retraining your nervous system to associate action with safety, not threat. Here's the simple model. Disconnection is not a personality flaw. It's a protection strategy. You learn to shut down because at some point, feeling was too much.
But now, that same protection is keeping you frozen. The path forward is not harder discipline. It's gentle reconnection. Name the feeling. Return to the body. Shrink the window. Find the meaning. Celebrate the small. Not because these steps are magic, but because they rebuild the bridge between your emotional system and your ability to act. And once that bridge is restored, you won't need to force yourself anymore. You'll simply move because you finally feel like it matters. You were never lazy. You were just protecting yourself from